Hi there, this is the recording on fallacies, but not fallacies in general, but specific kinds of fallacies, namely violations of the freedom rule. And the freedom rule is the very first, hope it works, very first rule of the rules for a critical discussion, which are the rules that stipulate what people should not do if they want to reach a reasonable resolution of their difference of opinion. So the freedom rule. What is it? Well, it reads as follows. Parties must not prevent each other from putting forward standpoints or casting doubt on standpoints. So this is quite a reasonable rule to lay down, because if you have people preventing each other from casting doubt on standpoints or putting forward standpoints, then probably you don't even have a discussion in the first place. So this is really a kind of preliminary rule that has to be fulfilled. Now, when this is not fully fulfilled, you could say then, or in other words, when there's a violation of this rule, you could say that there is a fallacy being committed. And an example of such a fallacy is the following. We have a discussion between A and B, and A presents the standpoint, you should check out Slim Sport, and the argument, it has quite good deals. Now B seems to be quite skeptical about this argumentation and says, of course you want me to try it out. Your sister owns that gym. So B implies that he isn't going to accept the argumentation by A because he suspects that A has sort of ulterior motivations or reasons to recommend Slim Sports as a gym. In other words, B tries to exclude A from the discussion by means of personal attack, and this particular kind of fallacy, because that's what it is, it's a limitation of the freedom of A here, so a rule violation here, freedom rule violation, and it's called an ad hominem fallacy. This is the circumstantial variant of this fallacy. To explain this, why this is this variant, please take a look at the following division. So when talking about the argumentum ad hominem, generally a threefold distinction is being made between direct personal attacks or abusive variants of the ad hominem, and they come down to the following. So you would have an argument like, I'm not listening to you because you're stupid, or you're silly or weird, or any other kind of negative qualification of this person. So that's quite directly done, right? And then there's the indirect personal attack or the circumstantial variant, and we just saw an example of that. So I'm not listening to you because I don't trust your motives, like the motives of the person whose sister owns Slim Sports. But the thing is, still, such a personal attack is not really relevant because, Slim Sport might have very good deals, and the fact that there are maybe possibly also alternative motives for arguing that you should go to Slim Sport doesn't really discredit the previous argumentation. So, this really is a fallacious kind of attempt, a fallacious personal attack. Okay, and then I said there are three variants. There's also the tu quoque variant of the ad hominem, which comes down to, I'm not listening to you because your words contradict your previous words or deeds. If you watched the general introduction to fallacy, you already saw an example of this variant of the ad hominem. It's a very well-known example, and that is about smoking. So you should stop smoking, says A, and B then says to A, well, that's rich of you because you're smoking yourself. Basically excluding A, or trying to exclude A from the discussion because of a contradiction in what A says and does. Now, as I pointed out also in the general introduction, this is not really good reasoning because A might, as an experienced smoker, they might actually be the authority to recommend you to stop smoking because A has the experience of smoking and all the negative consequences. So that contradiction between words and or deeds, it doesn't necessarily result in a good argument. So these are fallacious personal attacks, but I have one question for you, and that is, can you think of a situation in which a personal attack could be reasonable instead of fallacious? Well, now I can't really hear you, so I'll just continue and hope you thought about situations like this one. Here we have an article in the Guardian by Cas Mudde, and the article is all about why Joe Biden shouldn't run for president. Now, I don't think the article convinced Biden himself, but you can see exactly from the title, but also here, let me underline it. The author argues that Biden is the worst candidate for the Democrats and the best for Trump to run for president. And then actually argumentation is given for this. And the first argument is that Biden is old. And at the moment of writing, Biden was 76 years old. And I think that right now he is 77 or 78. And the argument goes as follows, that this isn't ageism, but as a president you have to be healthy and fit, and this is just too grueling for Biden. That's the argument. And then there follow other arguments. But the thing here is even though it might look as an ad hominem fallacy, I would actually argue here that it is not. I mean, it's not maybe nice for Biden to hear this, maybe impolite, or maybe you just don't like it that they're talking about his age and you don't like him being personally attacked. But the thing is, it's not really a fallacy or a rule violation here, because Biden isn't really limited in his freedom to react to murder in this case. And the reason for it is that the personal attack of Biden is already part of the standpoint here. So he's the worst candidate. And so the thing is, with standpoints, you can always you're always free to react to them. You can always criticize them, and that Biden could do, or Biden fans could do that. So there's all the room for a discussion. So here I would say that there is a personal attack for sure, of course, but this doesn't qualify as an ad hominem fallacy. So is this an ad hominem? No, I would say. So let me return to the rule, the freedom rule, and point out that next to the ad hominem fallacy, that is a fallacy as a result of this rule, a violation of this rule, there are also other kind of fallacies that result from violating this rule. One is called the ad baculum fallacy. So these fallacies all have Latin names, and ad baculum means with the stick. So the baculum, the stick. And what it comes down to is that you threaten someone. So you say something like, don't say X, because I know where you live, basically. So you threaten with violence or maybe some kind of negative consequences for this person, and thereby you limit this person's freedom to put forward a standpoint or an argument. You also have the ad misericordiam fallacy. Comes down to the same thing. You limit the freedom of the opponent, but this time you do that by means of an appeal to pity, misericordia. So an appeal to pity with you as a speaker. So think of examples like, don't give me such a low grade because I've studied for it so much and for such a long time. And so as the teacher, that is the opponent probably here, as the teacher you would should feel, the idea is that you should feel pity with the student and therefore give this person a higher grade. But of course the teacher also has limited room to react in a discussion to the pupil here. Then there are also the fallacies of declaring the standpoint sacrosanct or taboo. Sacrosanct come down to something like don't say anything bad about grandma, our deceased grandma, because we shouldn't speak ill of the dead, for instance. And an example of declaring a standpoint taboo I already introduced in the general introduction. It was something like, as a matter of principle, I don't discuss euthanasia. But it could be anything. Anything could be declared taboo. And then, of course, the other party doesn't have the room to discuss that topic with you. Okay, so these fallacies all come down actually to limitations of another party's freedom. And now that you've seen them, you can probably, hopefully, identify the fallacy in this example. I'll read it with you. So we have, well, of course you don't have to attend the meeting, but be aware of the fact that your job evaluation is coming up soon. Silence. Should drop a silence here. Anyway, hopefully you know now that this is an argumentum ad baculum. In other words, it's a fallacy of the stick. So, this is it about the freedom rule. There will be other clips about the 9 following rules, so stay tuned. Thank you very much for your attention, and talk to you soon.